This episode is brought to you by Indie Insights. Indie Insights is our bi-weekly newsletter and love note to the film industry, movies, and the creatives that make them, not to mention you, our esteemed listeners. Inside, you'll find curated industry trends, articles, exclusive commentary, and underappreciated films from filmmakers like you worldwide. And the best part is that it is completely free. So join today at www.bonsai.film. It takes just a few seconds. And once you sign up, you'll get the very next newsletter on Friday morning. It's that simple. Go to www.bonsai.film to get Indie Insights, our bi-weekly newsletter, and join a network of film creatives just like yourself. And don't worry, we'll never sell your information or spam you with a bunch of nonsense emails, just the bi-weekly film industry goodness you need. And if you ever tire of Indie Insights, simply unsubscribe. No gimmicks, no games. So go to www.bonsai.film to get Indie Insights for free. You're listening to Make It, a podcast by Bonsai Creative that helps creatives in film get where they're going faster by sharing the advice, knowledge, and insights of professional creatives across the film industry. I'm your host, Chris Barkley.
This is Aaron Irons. I am the writer and director of the film Chest, which is making its premiere at the DEFY Film Festival.
And I'm Josh Croft. I am the producer of Chest, and I also play Jeff.
Aaron Irons, Josh Croft.
Hello, sir.
Welcome to the Make It podcast. And today we're doing a special interview live in person on site at the 2022 DEFY Film Festival. I'm super pumped. You guys have the premiere night festival screening. That's got to be exciting for you too. But let's start at the beginning. How did you guys get to know each other?
Josh and I actually went to high school together. We grew up in the same town, and we went to the same college after that, and then we've just been friends.
Been buds since then.
But how did you find each other in that school, or in, I think it was Sequoia High School, right?
Yeah, it was a pretty small school. So I actually graduated with Aaron's older brother. Aaron was a couple years younger than me. And Aaron was that cool younger version of the brother where, Aaron's always been into music and stuff, and so we'd be at parties, these seniors, and I think were you freshmen then?
Yeah.
When we were seniors?
Yeah.
And Aaron was always, coming to parties, playing guitar. He was that kid. And
oh, wow.
Making his own records.
That guy.
I'm a piano player, and I always thought to myself, I would have got a lot more ladies if I played guitar, because that's music you can take with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a myth.
You didn't crush?
No.
It might be because you didn't play the Spanish guitar.
It probably wasn't very good.
I figured that's why he was hanging with you.
Yeah.
Follow the guitar, the ladies will come.
Once we got to college, Aaron kind of started branching out into more instrumental stuff, and that's when we actually started working together. We were both at MTSU in Murfreesboro, and the TV station there, MTTV, the college TV station. So I was a theater major, and I had been talking to Aaron about I wanted to do something on the TV station, didn't know what, and I said, I think I want to take a semester off from acting, doing theater stuff, and let's come up with a TV show. And I was at Aaron's house. He lived off Leaf Avenue with a bunch of our other friends, and I was over there one night, and he was like, hey, I got this new thing called an Electribe. I've been kind of messing around with it. Come in here and check it out. So I go in his room, and then he just starts playing like the greatest instrumental score stuff you can think of. And like, it was like, just hit me like a bolt of lightning. Like, I want to do something with this.
Yeah.
So I went home that night and wrote this little TV series called Dream Phones. And it was just me and Aaron. You know, Aaron was the cinematographer, kind of like this. You know, we just did everything. We spent no money on it. The only money spent on it was my mom gave me $50 to buy a new battery for the high 8mm camera we had.
Yeah.
And but that's when our first like working together stuff. And Aaron actually ran lights and everything else for my senior project that I did at MTSU, theater-wise. So
That's incredible. I had a friend named Jacob that used to go to MTSU, and he had a studio in his basement. And we were going to start a production company called Black and Tan because he's a white guy or whatever. And he thought it was very clever. I did too. It was cool. But that school, and so full disclosure for people that don't know this about me, is I also went to MTSU, graduated from MTSU. It's a music school, communication school, also a great business school, an ag school. The aviation program there is kind of taken off. It's a really big school. I don't think people understand globally, and this audience is a global audience, that MTSU, I think, is the biggest college in the state. If not, it's a close second to University of Tennessee, Knoxville.
Yeah,
there's a ton of people that go there.
By the
I
way,
think it passed UT when I was there.
Yeah.
So it's probably even more now.
Yeah.
I was there in 2006. So
It's something like 24 or 26,000. Just to let the audience in on sort of the technical of this film, and one of the impetus and catalysts for having you on the podcast. You guys are independent filmmakers. You made a feature film for $30,000, found footage style horror film. But you also were able to get a very, very good cast for this film. It's a SAG film. So how did you get the cast that you got that included SAG actors?
Well, I knew a lot of the people, the core five people. I've known them for quite a while, especially Dean Shortland, who plays David.
Dean is great in everything he's in.
Yeah, Dean and I go way back from when I was playing in bands around Nashville, and he was doing a lot of promotion and stuff like that. And when I decided to make the movie, I think Dean was the one person that I wrote specifically for Dean. Like, I was like, this is Dean. And everybody else, I kind of changed the character around a little bit for that person. But I knew Jason Crean, who plays Mark. We did a theatrical production of Terminator 2 back 10 years ago or so.
That sounds unbelievable.
It was a friend of mine rewrote the script to Terminator 2 using lines from all of William Shakespeare's works. So, like, there's a scene where the Terminator is like shooting the Gatling gun at the police, and he comes to the edge of the stage, and it's like, "Let's slip the dogs of war." Like, it's that kind of dialogue. It was really amazing what they did, and Jason was the Terminator, and then Sarah Van Arsdale, she was also in that. So I met those two through that. So when I was figuring out who to cast for this, I just went to who I knew, and it wasn't originally a SAG production, but once we started rolling on things, and it kind of escalated, and it was going to be a lot of time for these, because Dean was already SAG. Ted Welch was, I think he was SAG at the time.
Yeah.
So I had some people, and they were going to do it anyway without SAG's involvement, because it wasn't really a big project, and sometimes they do that. But then Dean was like, I can't do like a 15-day shoot without getting SAG involved. So I was like, okay, well, I'll look into that. Yeah. And so I went and met with the local SAG rep, and he was extremely helpful with everything. And
who is the local SAG rep?
Richard?
Yeah, Richard Van Sickle or Sickle. Yeah. I'm not sure how you say his last name, but he's all about helping indie filmmakers, and that process was pretty rough. Like, it was a lot of paperwork, a lot of back and forth with somebody that I think my business rep is out of Florida. And it was just very frustrating because it's like all these regulations and rules you have to follow. And, I'm just like, okay, blah, blah, blah. And finally got through all that. And so when we started casting some of the other characters, like the bartender and the guy at the bar and stuff like that, we just, since we were SAG, we're like, okay, send us some SAG people. I talked to Cookie, Kim McRae in town.
Cookie McRae, friend of the podcast.
Yeah.
Dean Shortland, Ted Welch, all friends of the podcast. All of them have been on before.
We pretty much use Cookie's entire roster. Like once we like that first meeting that Aaron was kind of alluding to is when I met. I didn't know a lot of these people when I first met Ted and Dean. And a quick little story about Dean. And during that meeting, there was only like 10 of us there, and we didn't really know what we were going to do. Me and Aaron I hadn't really talked about being a producer of this yet. And so we were just getting all this feedback from Ted and Dean. And Dean was talking like in his American accent. If you know Dean, he's Australian.
He's Australian.
But he was talking like I wasn't picking up on the Australian. I didn't know him. And then, fast forward a couple months later, we're doing a read through, and all of a sudden he's got this Australian dialect. And I went up to Aaron afterwards. I said, "That's an interesting choice. Did you write it like that?" He said, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, "Well, I mean, he's using this Australian dialect, and it's really good." He goes, "He's Australian, dude. Like he's from Australia." And I told him that later, and he was like, "Well, man, that's good. That's good to know. I've been trying it out." But that first meeting when we met everybody is what we talk about a lot. Is where the greatest decision that we made happened that day. And because I could tell Aaron was really overwhelmed when they started talking about investors and how much money it's actually going to cost, because we didn't really have a clue. We're like, we might could do this for $10,000, $20,000.
Yeah.
And then they were talking about, no, it's like $200,000. You need to get investors. And we were just like, oh. And I just saw Aaron like deer in headlights. And so everybody else left, and I stayed around, and I walked back up to the door, and I'm like, how about me and you just do this? I was like, how about we finance this ourselves? I was like, hey, it's not going to cost that much. And I mean, we don't have a ton of money.
Yeah.
But I was like, plus, I just don't want anybody else to tell us how to do this. And I knew Aaron didn't want to.
Right.
I knew that would be something that it would just eventually just say, we don't want to do it. So we decided that day, is like, we're going to figure this out. We're going to pay for this ourselves, pay everybody involved. That was the other thing, is like when we talk about, hey, it's a SAG picture and it costs $30,000-$40,000. It's a local thing. And they're like, oh, everybody worked for free. It's like, no, everybody got paid. And, and then SAG being involved was a huge plus for us, because we're one of the only local films, especially at this budget level, especially a found footage movie, that is SAG. And, credit Aaron for that, because he's the one that shelved all the paperwork. And I would call him, he would just be so stressed out. I'd be like, dude, I don't understand this stuff.
Yeah, I literally, at one point I was so stressed out, I lost my hearing.
Oh, wow.
Like one day I woke up and I couldn't hear out of one of my ears, and I didn't know what was going on. And I went and had like MRI scans, and all the doctors were like, well, we don't really know much about the ears, to be honest. And I'm like, great. And then
that's what you want to hear.
I was like, could it be stress? And he's like, yeah, probably could be. Are you really stressed out? And I'm like, yeah. And like the day I finished the paperwork with SAG, it came back.
That is unusual.
It was so weird.
Yeah.
That is unusual.
And anytime they would call, like, anytime I had to get back into that paperwork business stuff, like, my hearing would go away. It was so weird.
They say stress is a killer.
Yeah.
It does a lot. It's something we don't understand very well.
Yeah.
We don't understand its impact on like how the rest of your sort of cellular function absorbs and understands how you're feeling mentally. But in this case, took your hearing away.
Yeah, it was weird.
For the filmmakers out there that are looking to do something similar, can you tell us just, I guess this is more a question for you, Aaron, what did you shoot with?
Well, we shot on a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema. That was our primary camera.
Okay.
And then a little DSLR Rebel T6, I think it was, Canon.
Really?
And then we had a bunch of like GoPro cameras for a lot of stuff, like the interiors of cars, when there's scenes in a cave, and it's all from the point of view of the actors, we use those quite a bit. That's
Use the GoPros as your basically POVs.
yeah.
You know, like the security cameras and,
Yeah.
you know.
Did you intentionally, like, what was the decision making like for the GoPros to go like 4K versus standard because it's found footage? Is it better that, like, I don't know which decision you made, but can you tell me and then tell us why?
Well, they were all 4K, and that was really helpful just because it gives you more room to crop things. Because there was a lot of times when we were shooting, and I had no idea what they were actually capturing. So, like,
Especially the cave stuff,
in the cave,
right?
especially because like we didn't have monitors, we didn't have anything. So it's like we're
wow.
filming,
Okay.
and it's like I hope they get what I need. I hope I get the coverage I need because it's kind of a time thing because you start to get really cold down there, and like we had to deal with that. So like we were just I'm getting everything out of the way, and I'm like just look this direction and stuff. So like if they were to accidentally capture something that I didn't want on there, I was able to crop and move the frame around a lot, so that helped quite a bit. And honestly, getting into this, I really didn't know a lot. I was just figuring out all the technical stuff as I went, because I'd never done any kind of filming or anything like that.
Did you have to throw either of the Black Magic or the Rebel on a gimbal because you're shooting in terrain and in the woods or anything like that?
No.
Where you steadied the cam? Like what were the challenges of shooting in the woods?
Well, since it's found footage, that's one of the main reasons I went with the found footage route, which turns out making a found footage movie is not really easier.
Yeah, no, it's not. That's a whole.
There's certain liberties you
That's a
can.
myth.
It helps with, like if you just don't get a good shot or get the perfect shot, it doesn't matter. You can kind of cheat it a lot more, and so that's helpful. But then there's a whole other areas of making found footage that's weird, but
Yeah, like acting in a found footage movie is really strange. That's really strange because as an actor, like everything you do, you're taught don't look at the camera. You know, it's just a fly on the wall kind of thing.
Yeah.
But in found footage, like look at the camera, and then you go to that other level of like the character Jeff, his first scene, that interview scene, is like, okay, well, it's a found footage movie, but you're also getting interviewed. And that was the very first thing that we shot, by the way. So it was actually one of the easier things to start off with, but we learned a lot that day because Aaron was also running sound at the time and directing and running the cameras and, I mean, just everything. But that interview scene was a little easier because it was set up like, you know, an interview.
Right.
You didn't have to worry about the stuff. Too, you know, there's a lot of people, when I tell people that, you know, we've made a found footage movie, they're like, oh, I can't stand the shaky cam stuff. Like, I'll get nauseated. Somebody said last night, actually, we were talking about it, and she's like, how shaky is it? I was like, it's not at all. Like, it's come, you know, technology's come a long way, and we definitely didn't want to intentionally make it shaky. Like, that's just,
Right.
I'm not the biggest fan of found footage movies.
But how did you do it though? Like Josh and Aaron, like how did you keep it from being overly shaky? Considering you're in a cave, you're in the woods, people are running a lot of times, or they're walking.
Well, the body
GoPro on their head, I assume.
Yeah, the body camera stuff's definitely the most shaky. But there's always
Was it like an all software fix, or was it?
I think it's mostly so Steve Cross, who was the cinematographer on
It's
this.
a DP, yeah.
Yeah. He said, this is another interesting thing about found footage movies is with this one specifically, it's about this documentary crew that are what you would think be professional camera people, right? So Dean and Marissa's character, especially Marissa's character, is really technical about that. So he wanted it to look good. And, you know, what was done a lot was Steve would be actually filming everything, and Marissa would be like standing behind him, you know, and then in cases there's, you know, Marissa and Dean's actually holding the cameras. But it was, I mean, you didn't have to fix any of that later, right? It was mostly
not really the shaky stuff. I mean, when you watch the movie, there's definitely some flaws, especially when Dean is filming, because he's not paying attention to any of that. He's just you know, directing the camera, so stuff will go blurry at times and move in and out, but it kind of adds to the natural feel of it. And that's why the found footage format works, because it gives you that liberty of being like, okay, yeah, the focus is kind of weird here for a minute and it's kind of shaky, but we just rolled with it, and it comes together pretty well. And I try to do a lot of stationary shots as well, where somebody just puts the camera on a tripod and you see them putting it on a tripod, so you know that, like, because a lot of found footage purists are like, if they see a stationary shot, they're like, no, that's that's not found footage. And I'm like, whatever.
Yeah, I have some questions about that here coming up in a second too. Just full disclosure, and I love Marissa Kay, who I met as Marissa Grindstaff, and she's so funny. I ended up having just a crush on her. Like, it's just something about a girl who's so naturally funny and isn't forcing anything. She's just funny.
She's hilarious.
She is really
Almost
funny.
Balanced Foodie is
it's
great. Her and Ted's little series.
It was the best.
That we actually just a guy just gave us a review. Was that yesterday? A couple days ago, and he was in love with Marissa.
Yeah,
and he was,
she makes people fall in love with her.
Yeah,
That's like her
she's so
secret
beautiful
power.
and all this stuff. And she's great. She's
a great
She's really
actress.
goofy too, which is awesome.
She can really turn on the the drama as well.
Yeah,
Like,
she's charming and dramatic and all that stuff, and funny as hell. We've talked a lot about what the film is in terms of, like, this is found footage, this is indie. We haven't told this audience what it's about. Can we just talk a little bit about the true myth that exists in dark Appalachia, if you will, and why you guys decided to go ahead and make a movie about this story you were all both told as children?
yeah. So the main story is about a couple of hunters that were out during the 80s, where there was a big drought, and they were hunting, and they found this cave that was normally behind a waterfall, but the river had gotten so low that they could see there's an entrance, and they went back in there.
Oh, cool.
And they found a giant chest back there.
Yeah.
And it was wrapped in chains and had, like, old locks on it and everything. They tried to get it open, but they couldn't. And then so they decided they were going to come back with some tools and stuff like that. But something happened where they weren't able to come back that day. It came in, like, torrential rain for several days after that. And then they went back and could never find the cave again. And that story was told to me as a kid by my uncle. And he used to tell us that the devil was inside of it and stuff like that.
This is Uncle Shag.
Uncle Shag. A lot of the stories from the movie are from Uncle Shag.
Are you saying Shaq or Shag?
Shag.
Oh, Shag, okay.
Yeah. That's his preferred name, but yeah. And so when I was in high school and stuff, me and my friends used to go up into the mountains, and we were searching, trying to find this cave, and never found it. But so eventually, I made a movie about it instead.
There you go.
But somewhere out there is a box.
There's somewhere out there really is a chest.
And there's all kinds of different
Covered in
versions
chains.
of that story too. I actually went to my 20-year high school reunion a few years ago, and I called Aaron right afterwards because this is when we were in the middle of making it, and one of our friends says, what's it about? And I told him, and then he just starts, like, telling his version of the story. And I didn't realize, like, so many people knew this story, because I didn't really hear it a lot growing up.
Yeah.
But he started telling this version of the story, so I just pulled out my phone and start filming it, and I sent it to Aaron. And Aaron was like, we could actually use something like that, because originally we had thought we were going to do, like, some local interviews, kind of like what is that movie with Jack Black, Bernie? Is that Bernie, where they do that kind of the local interview stuff? We thought originally we were going to do some of that and have, like, people comment on this.
Right.
But yeah, it's a lot of different versions of that up there.
Yeah, and the other stories in the movie, there's about this guy, Ebenezer Jeffrey, who...
What a name.
Yeah, it's great. This was like in the 1800s, and he was also out hunting, and his dogs took off into a cave, and the guy was with him told him, it's like, don't go in that cave, it's evil. And he was like, I'll go to hell for those dogs. So he never came back. And the area up there is actually called Jeffrey's Hell. It's in the City-Co wilderness, like, it's on maps as Jeffrey's Hell, the last resting place of Ebenezer Jeffrey. And that's referenced in the movie as well. And it's also a true story.
Henry Haggerty plays the bartender. In that scene, he tells that story.
Yeah.
Of
I'm getting, that's a little goosebumpy.
Yeah.
So yeah, the
Jeffrey's Hill.
real local legends were the big inspiration for the movie.
And growing up there, you know, you don't really, you're not scared of that stuff because I mean, I grew up where my nearest neighbor was like 2 miles away. Like I grew up on a farm, and you know, Aaron grew up around the same area too. So all this stuff was just normal. Like you would hear these stories and you just wouldn't think anything of it. And you know, it wasn't until we come over here and we start talking to people that were from cities and never really been there, and then really got it when we went to East Tennessee for a week to do a lot of the filming. Yeah. And you know, me and Aaron like grew up there, so we know all the place. But everybody else they were just like, there is nobody in this town. Like, there's nothing here. And we're like, well, they've actually added a lot of stuff since we lived here. And just going into the woods and doing things like that, everybody was scared of poison ivy. Like, everybody was terrified of poison ivy, which turned out not to be a problem.
Yeah. That's amazing. How do you plan on dealing with the comparisons to Blair Witch Project?
I'm okay with it. I think if you make a found footage movie, you're always going to get a comparison to Blair Witch because it's kind of like the godfather of...
Yeah, it's kind of like the GOAT of found footage. I mean, found footage would have eventually found its way out somehow, you know?
Yeah.
But it really set a bar that everybody's going to be compared to no matter what.
Yeah, anytime you do anything in the woods or in a tent in the woods, like, it's going to get a comparison to Blair Witch, which I'm okay with it because I think Blair Witch is...
It's more like an homage more than...
Oh, there's a lot of nods to Blair Witch.
Derivative of.
Yeah, and there's a lot of nods to a bunch of different found footage movies. I watched probably 500 different found footage movies while I was writing it. And like a certain scene, it'd be like, all right, that was cool. And kind of adopt some of the methods that they might have used for like a practical effect or something like that.
I'd love to talk about some of those decision makings around found footage and tactics that maybe filmmakers can learn from as they're going into their own decision making. For example, what I know you edited this thing and it almost drove you crazy, Aaron. What were some of the decisions and I should mention, it's really important, I should mention your company, Iron Fox, and you are, Aaron Irons, you scored it as well. What were some of the decisions around adding scoring on a found footage film? Because that can be really tricky because there shouldn't be music playing, right? Yeah, but at the same time, I don't really see it as, I'm not trying to sell it as real footage. And that's kind of a big problem with, again, the found footage purists out there that, if there's music in it. But I found that it really kind of enhanced the scenes quite a bit. And I watched a found footage movie, Exists, which is by Eduardo Sanchez, who made Blair Witch Project. And he used music, and it worked really well. And I was like, well, if the godfather of found footage is using music, then I can use music. And I think it helped. And I tried not to do anything that was really too crazy. Most of the music is just in the background of the scene or in the car. And sometimes that music will move to the foreground of the film just to do a transition or something. But most of the music is just like droning and just like hits and just kind of rhythmic things to build tension. And I was kind of on the fence about it for a long time of using that, but it really just made a big difference in how some of the scenes were interpreted.
I was very happy when he decided to put music on it, because going back to like our first collaboration, like it was all about the music, because Aaron is, it's the instrumentalist part of him is insanely talented. So when he told me I knew he was wanting to make a found footage movie for a while. And when he first came to me and said, hey, I wrote this found footage movie, I think I want to do it. Yeah. And I was like, dude, of course, your first movie, you're going to make a genre that typically doesn't have a score. Because I'd actually asked him, I was working on another film with a friend of mine, and he was looking for somebody to score this film. So I was like, I got the perfect guy. So I'd reached out to Aaron and said, hey, are you interested in doing that? And he said, well, he started writing the found footage movie. And he said, he's like, yeah, I can't do it. I'm trying to get this found footage thing off the ground. So once he decided to put that on there, I was very happy. And
Yeah,
I think it's a hybrid version of things, and we've never really went by rules on doing any of this. So
yeah, it's just kind of all decision making. Are you going to go heavy on hits, like you said, and sort of I guess droning and music that leads you to a hit, or are you going to lean heavy on Foley, or are you going to have a good mix of Foley and that to give the sense that, okay, well, maybe these leaves are rustling every step versus a drone, or maybe I mix droning with leaves being crumbled or something's off screen.
Yeah.
And we don't know what's off screen, and here's that sound. So I was curious about that decision making, and then also the decision making in the moment as filmmakers. How much of Chest was improvised versus planning ahead for the shots that you were going to get for that particular day of shooting?
It was pretty well structured. Dialogue.
As far as the dialogue goes, I know all of mine, like all of Jeff's stuff, is verbatim. Like
Okay.
there was only one word that I changed. Literally, when we were doing the commentary track a couple days ago, that was one thing we talked about. Is Aaron's writing, and again, going back to how well written someone's first script is. Like, I think no matter what happens with the movie, I think that his first version of this script was so good.
It was like 300 pages long.
It was so long.
I didn't know what I was doing.
Again, I'm reading this Garrison before we decided that I was going to play Jeff, and I was like, I really like this guy. Man, this is a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
But you're also
long.
talking about the many worlds theory and quantum physics and really heady stuff.
Yeah. Schrodinger's
so you
cat.
can't improv that, So, but I think Ted Welch has most of his lines that are really funny came from him.
Yeah.
Aaron always said, he would do it scripted the first time.
Yeah.
And then he would just throw something out there.
Yeah, he always did the one scripted one, and then he would do one that was just really crass or just something ridiculous. And most of the time we ended up using the scripted version, but sometimes he just threw out something that was perfect. Like
the line in the film, the psycho mammal line, that's all Ted. Like, that's my favorite line of the movie, and that was all
I don't want to get killed by some psycho mammal.
Yeah, that's all him.
Papa Bear and I were talking about Ted and how he's perfect for found footage films because he just really is Ted.
Yeah.
Like, whatever movie he's in, he's almost like Ryan Reynolds in that way. It's like Ryan Reynolds playing Deadpool, Ryan Reynolds playing Van Wilder. It's just, it's him doing what he does. And Ted just shows up in movies, and it's Ted Welch in the woods. So let's enjoy Ted Welch in the woods. Okay, now this is Ted Welch in the suburbs, and now this is Ted Welch on a date, and he just brings himself to it in that way. I think because that he can improvise like that, and it feels really natural to the character. So really wonderful. Were there any of those? No, I know that most of it was planned, but were there any other anything else improvised outside of Ted's lines that ended up in the final cut? From a shooting perspective or from a line
dialogue, probably not, but definitely
Shooting
piece of it.
There's a lot that we had to cut. There wasn't really that much improv on that. Sometimes the location would have to change and we'd alter the scene a little bit. But when especially out in East Tennessee, I had a pretty tight shot list and
Very detailed.
Yeah.
because we only had one shot to, like each day was pretty, it's like, okay, we're doing this location on this day. We have to get everything. Otherwise everything else is screwed up. So like we're pretty strict about.
In that way, it's like the trick is making it feel loose when in fact,
fast.
You've got your stuff together.
Shot stuff very fast. Like as far as scene setup and, Aaron and Steve are machines. They would be in their own little world setting up the shots and everything. But there wasn't a whole lot of, just waiting around for shots to be set up. And I guess a lot of that is luxury of found footage that you don't have the lighting and, you don't have a lot of the extra stuff because you don't need it. That maybe help. But everything we did, like what was it in East Tennessee? We, for 4 days, shot 65 pages, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a lot.
That's a huge amount. It's like working on a soap opera.
Probably won't do it that way.
Is it true, Aaron, that you were held at gunpoint?
I was.
And forced into a vehicle trying to shoot this film? Can you tell us that story?
So that was Tater. He's a
Tater?
Tater. His name's Tater. And I was back in East Tennessee. This was before, like a few months before we were scheduled to go out there. And I was just doing some location scouting and was planning on doing some camera tests up in the woods at night. And that main location with the big silo house in the movie, that place is owned by a guy that we got a location contract. Like, we got him to sign a contract. He's like, yeah, you can shoot there anytime you want. And I had a key and everything to get up there. Well, what we didn't know is while that guy owned that side of the property, there was another guy that owned the other side of the property between the road. Mm-hmm. And I was staying in a little cabin down the road from up there, and I walked over there one night with my camera, and I was just like up in the woods filming. And the final scene, or not the final scene of the movie, but there's a scene with Marissa coming off the mountain and going into the roundhouse and then running away. I shot all that stuff myself because I wasn't going to make her fall down a mountain.
Right.
And right after I cut the camera on that scene, I was walking back and I see this truck coming down the road, and I was like, "Oh God, who's this?" It was like 9 or 10 at night, and they just pull up, slam on their brakes, get out. Both of them had guns. One of them has a shotgun.
Oh my
One
God.
has a pistol, and they're like, "What the hell are you doing up here?" Blah blah blah. And I had my camera, and I was like, "Hold up, like I'm supposed to be here," like, because people come up to this place all the time just to like do drugs and vandalize it and stuff. So he thought I was up to something. And I tried to explain to him, I was like, "Listen, I got a contract with the owner. I've just talked to him. Like, I'll call him if you want me to." And he's like, he wasn't having any of it. Like, he didn't believe me. And he's like, show me the contract. And I noticed this, he has a name tag. He's like a mechanic's uniform. It says Tater.
Yeah.
Short for potato.
Yeah. And so I was like, I'll call the owner right now. And I didn't have any cell phone service. And I was like, I'll have to go down to my cabin and get the contract. Mm-hmm. And, or until I get cell phone service. And he was just like, "Get in the truck." So he points the gun at me, and I get in the back of the truck, and his kid was the other guy. He's probably like 16-year-old kid. He's got the shotgun trained on me the whole time. And I'm in the back, like, and I never turned the camera on.
He was like, "Don't hit a bump."
I wish I'd have turned that camera on for the whole thing. It would have been great. But I was kind of worried I was going to get shot. But we get down. So we drive down the mountain, and I finally get cell phone service, and I call the guy, and luckily he answered the phone. This guy was like 70 years old, bad health. I was like, he's not going to answer the phone. These guys are going to kill me. And luckily he answered. They talked it out. It was all cool. And then he's like, "So you're shooting a movie?" And I'm like, "Yeah, pretty soon." And he's like, then he was very curious about the movie, asking me to be in it and all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I'll find a part for you.
Let me call my producer, Josh.
Yeah.
Let him know the situation.
Oh, I talked to Tater.
Oh, man. Yeah,
Tater. What was his son's name?
I don't know. I called him Tater Tot.
Softball.
Never learned his name. But he, after we talked, it was understandable because apparently a few weeks before that, there was a guy that was camping in one of the mines back behind that house, was like squatting back there.
Yeah.
And his daughter was coming home one night, and the guy like came down and like tried to attack her. So they had like a big ordeal with that. So when he was driving home, he saw lights up in the woods, and he's like, "That guy's back, that squatter's back," or something. So that's what triggered the whole thing. But after that, we were cool. He did come down a couple more times in the middle of the night while I was up there, and I was shooting some stuff in the woods, and he comes back up there and still got his gun. And I was like, "What are we doing, Tater?"
Me again.
He's like, "Man, you got some balls to be up here in the middle of the night, and this place is haunted."
It's like, I know, that's why we're doing a movie of it.
It was weird being up there by myself in the middle of the woods in that weird building, but
Yeah. Tater and Aaron always said, I don't think anybody believes me that this guy exists because Aaron's the only person that ever met him in person.
Okay.
Like I talked to him on the phone one time because I called him and I'm like, dude, seriously, like, I've been talking to the guy, like everything's fine. You can calm down. And he's like, well, I'm sorry, and then he goes into that whole thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, stuff like that happens around there. And
he never made an appearance during the shoot, luckily. But I kind of wished he would have.
Aaron actually called me like after the first held at gunpoint thing. He called, and I didn't know he was up there.
Was he in tears?
No, he just called. He's like, dude, the craziest shit just happened. And he told me, and I'm like, okay, I'm not surprised because that happens up there, but I'm like,
that was my question. Does this happen up there?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I didn't panic too much because I was like,
If that would have happened here, it would have been different. But out there, all right.
Everybody's got guns.
I'm going to get in your trunk. You got me at gunpoint.
Yeah, sure, I'll get in there. Maybe we'll end up on the mountain somewhere.
Yeah, nobody knew I was up there.
I don't know.
It's like I'm going to disappear and nobody's going to know.
The world is thankful that you made it a situation and that this movie is complete. I only have a couple more questions for you guys. We'll get you out of here. I know the premiere is coming up very shortly. You have the name of the scoring company, Iron Fox. Where does I get that Iron's your last name. Where does the Fox come from?
Well, I made a record about 6 or 7 years ago, a solo record that me and a guy, his name was Justin Fox. He played drums on it, and we did a couple of shows and just made that record, and I just kept the name Iron Fox. He went on to do other stuff, so I just anytime I do solo music, I just do it under that name.
Under Iron Fox. He's cool with it?
Yeah, I don't care.
Josh, what's the goal? What's the plan for Chest going forward after tonight?
Oh, man.
What do you guys want to do with it?
The great thing about this festival, and I do want to talk about DEFY just a little bit because
please,
I've been every year, and I was here on the very first year where, it really hasn't changed a lot. It's always been about these kind of films, but I've been here every year, and it just keeps getting better year after year. So, Aaron and I guess this was probably 4 or 5 years ago when we were here. We were standing outside, and we're like, we really want to be in this festival. We want to make something to be in this festival, and that was kind of how a lot of this started rolling. And the last few years, with COVID and stuff, had to take the year off, but this was the festival we wanted to be in. We've been getting a lot of recognition, especially overseas with some virtual festivals, won a lot of awards so far. Really thankful for all that, but DEFY was always our mountaintop. And so now we're here, so it's like, okay, what's beyond this? And Aaron and I have talked about, different ways speaking of Richard Sag, we had a call with him just a few days ago talking about, things like residuals. And if we did decide to self-distribute, how do we do that? And, still a lot more research to be done. But I think for the rest of this year, we want to continue with festivals. And, hopefully beginning of next year, I think Aaron's working on a Blu-ray, physical copy of that. And
sweet.
That we can sell on the website. And then going to streaming services, obviously is the goal, and this is not a theatrical movie. There's just not any really good ones that are not superhero movies anymore. So I think we want to find the best path for us in the movie where, one, we don't want to change anything. We're not changing the name. We're not, there's no reshoots. We're just not going to do that.
Right. There's
no need for it. And then kind of see where that goes. And, eventually certain streaming services Tubi and Shudder would be great, and it's where it would fall into something that more people would get to see it. But, Aaron never made this movie, wrote this movie for a massive audience. It's not for everybody. And we knew that going in. And we've always tried to stay very humble about, what it is and know that there's a specific audience that's really going to like it. And there are people that are just not going to, it's just not their thing. And, we're not trying to change the world with it, but I think the next steps, I thank Aaron every day for just introducing me to a lot of these people, because that's, again, where I met Ted. Now I'm producing Ted's next movie, and we're almost done with that. And I'm actually acting in that too. And, working with new people that I wouldn't have met because of this. And I never thought of myself to be a producer either. Like, I always wanted to be an actor. And, I didn't move to LA or New York to do that. And I don't have any regrets doing that. And I definitely don't want to do it now. But, when I took on this producer role, it was kind of out of necessity, but then I learned I really, really like it. And I don't want to act in anything that I'm not producing. Like, I'll think about it and, if the right thing's there, but there's a certain thing about having the control of it where that you're not just showing up and then going home, like you're part of it.
Right.
So, I think that next few months we're just kind of playing it by ear. And again, going back to that greatest decision we ever made, like we owe nothing to anybody. We're the sole investors. And unless me and Aaron have some big falling out, which unlikely to happen, we trust each other. And, we don't really talk about money a lot. And when it comes to how things work with that, we just see what happens.
There you go.
Yep.
Well, I'll finish on this. On the 27th, that'll be the 1-year anniversary of your dad's passing. Well, at least his birthday, I should say.
Well, his birthday
is 27th. Yeah. And I know that he was one of the dedications at the end of the film. If he were here, what would he be saying about all this? How would he be encouraging you and Aaron?
Well, it's funny. When I was leaving the house to come over here, I was waiting on the Uber, and my sister's actually here tonight too. She just randomly surprised me and showed up. So
awesome.
My dad gave me this necklace that I'm wearing a long time ago, and I'm not a big necklace guy, but I ran up and got it and put it on. But a lot of things happen when you make a movie like this, and it takes so long, the process, things happen. I actually lost my grandfather, my dad's dad, 3 days after we were filming in East Tennessee. I took a day off from filming so I could actually go see him, because he was 96 too, and
right.
An awesome guy. And, my dad's passing was a freak accident. He was cutting timber and a tree fell on him.
That's awful.
But it was just shocking. Still is. It'll be a year, September 30th. So when Aaron showed me the first cut with the credits on there, because he said that he wanted to do something, and I was like, I didn't ask him to do it, and I was on the fence on whether I wanted that in there or not. But it brought tears to my eyes first time I saw it, because my dad, I'll be very candid, my dad probably would not like this movie because there's too much cussing. It's just, my dad loved Westerns and old TV shows, but he was a very conservative Christian man, and, did not like language. It was hard for him to sit through plays if I was saying stuff. So I wouldn't, this wouldn't be his bag, but he was very proud of me for doing it. He was a soft-spoken man, didn't really know how to express a lot of that in that generation. Right. But I just remember that, and I'll stop on this, the day that he drove me back up to the cabin that we were staying in East Tennessee when we were shooting. So I got to ride with him up there, and it's like a 30-minute drive, and, his father was dying. Yeah. And we had went up there to see him the day before, and so he's driving me up there that morning, and we're having this conversation, and I was like, how are you dealing with this? Are you processing it? And he's like, I've made peace with it. And it was just a very open conversation we really hadn't had. And then my dad did my papa's service. And I think at that point, they always say that you're not really a man until your father is gone. And I saw that happen with him. I didn't know that a year later I would be doing the same thing. But I think he would be proud of me. He's never really quite understood the acting piece, but he one of the best compliments I ever got is this is what you meant to do, Josh. Just what you meant to do.
Oh, that's great.
So I keep that with me. And again, thank Aaron for putting that on there. It means a lot.
That means a lot to me too. That was great. And Aaron, can you tell everybody where they can find you on social media, on the internet, or even see some of your work?
Yeah, it's chessmovie.com and Instagram, chessmovie, same way. No Facebook or anything like that. But the website is where all the news and chances where you can watch it and all that stuff will be on.
Are you on there individually? outside of the movie anywhere? People can reach out to you, maybe ask you questions.
Yeah, you can send me questions on Instagram. That's probably the best place.
Okay, and just at the handle you just mentioned.
Yeah, Chess Movie.
Okay, perfect. Josh?
And I let Aaron handle all that. Like I got a love-hate relationship with social media. The only reason I'm on Instagram is because that's the only place Chess is on there.
Is there any place where we can find you on the internet, social media, any email addresses, anything?
jcroductions@gmail.com. Jcroductions is my production company.
You might have to spell that. It's
I know. Like if somebody can actually guess how to spell that, it's always like, but it's JCRODUCTIONS at Gmail. So that's my email address. And I'm on Facebook and stuff, but I don't, it's.
He has no internet presence.
In my day job, I deal with computer stuff every day. And so I kind of want that out of my personal life. And honestly, I think it's a little unhealthy sometimes to be so obsessed with it, but I'm there because of the movie. And I definitely will follow and repost stuff with Chest. But.
Yeah, and I agree with you. It's a whole other conversation that we'll save for another time.
Maybe we'll come back. That is talk about random things.
Yeah, that is short. Exactly, that is sure to come. And gentlemen, I wish you the best of luck tonight. The movie is going to premiere here in
half an hour.
Half an hour. So here we go. And I can't thank you enough for spending a little time with me on the Make It podcast.
It's been fun.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Talk soon. Hey, gang, one more thing before you go. I want to talk to you about Indie Insights. Indie Insights is our bi-weekly newsletter and love note to the film industry, movies, and the creatives that make them, not to mention you, our esteemed listeners. Inside, you'll find curated industry trends, articles, exclusive commentary, and underappreciated films from filmmakers like you worldwide. And the best part is that it's completely free. So join today at www.bonsai.film. It just takes a few seconds, and once you sign up, you'll get the very next newsletter. It's that simple. Go to www.bonsai.film to get Indie Insights, our bi-weekly newsletter, and join a network of film creatives like yourself. And don't worry, we'll never sell your information or spam you with a bunch of nonsense emails, just the bi-weekly film industry goodness you need. And if you ever tire of Indie Insights, we hope not, but if you do, simply unsubscribe. No gimmicks, no games. So, one more time, go to www.bonsai.film to get Indie Insights for free. And thank you for listening.